Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Unscaled Travel Show. I'm so glad you are here with us. My name is Jeremy Long. I'm your host, here with my co-host and co-explorer, Amy.
Hello.
We are coming to you from the beautiful city in the desert, Las Vegas, in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios. And we have a really fun, interesting, and I think for some people, eye-opening, maybe a little maddening show for you. It's about those first great travel influencers out there, the ones we learned about in the history books, and how kind of like nothing has changed because where these people are often presented to us as like heroes.
Right.
And very brave. And they did do some very brave things, going off sailing across unknown oceans and crossing vast deserts and things like that. They did change the world forever. But a lot of what we learned about some of the great travelers of our time, like the Marco Polos and the Lewis and Clarks and the people of that nature, is that oftentimes reality was much more, I don't know. They embellished a lot, I should say.
They had a really good PR person.
Really good marketing, really good PR for the time. And so, you know, and I get that public school systems around the world are facing a crisis, that you don't get into everything. But oftentimes what we learned about people is just kind of the glossy veneer.
Yes.
And they're associated with things that aren't really true. And I thought it would be fun to really kind of examine a few of them. We can't get to all of them, but we can get to a few of them and kind of muddy the waters a little bit.
Discredit them.
Not discredit. I'm not bringing any new evidence, but it is, I think, important to kind of frame it into the position of like a lot of these people did set out to do some things that would change the world. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them did in various ways. Not all of them changed the world for the better necessarily. Okay. We will get into it. And I know it's a little bit iffy, but you know, that's what I like to do.
You like to stir the pot.
If this is your first time listening to the show, sorry.
We don't mean to offend you if you really like one of these people.
Yeah, if you have a Marco Polo shirt, I am sorry.
If you're a big fan of the swimming pool game, Marco Polo.
Let's start with that one. Number one, he did not invent that. And I don't even know why.
I looked it up. Why is this? It's basically, if you don't know what Marco Polo is a game that kids play in the water where they close their eyes. One person's it, and the ones who are not it call out Marco, and the one that is it says Polo, and they have to try to find them with their eyes closed. I looked up why is it called that. No one knows. There's lots of funny guesses, and one is that the famed explorer had no clue where he was going, and it was like he was stumbling around blind. So the game theoretically was named after that, but really no one knows.
Well, there you go. Well, we can't say for certain where it came from. Just like we can't say for certain all of the things that Marco Polo claimed he saw and witnessed and was a part of, right? So Marco Polo, if you don't know, is often remembered as the man who, quote unquote, discovered Asia for Europeans. He was a Venetian merchant who spent years in the court of Kublai Khan and brought back a wealth of knowledge about China and the East. He wrote a book about it. It was, I don't know, in the terms of those days, a bestseller. And it's still, a lot of people read it. You know, a lot of really pretentious people still read it. The reality checks for Marco Polo, okay? Number one, he did not discover Asia for Europeans.
No.
There was a number of European travelers, oftentimes monks who would travel the Silk Road and go into China and do different things like that. So he was far from the very first European to make that travel. He left Venice in 1271. What? You were about to say
I was
something
just about to say the really interesting part is that his own father had already been to China before that. Yeah. And when Marco went, it was because his dad was going back and was like, come with me before things get bad here at home. So it's not even like he was the first person in his family to go to China.
Right, because they were from, I think, Genoa, somewhere around that region in Italy, and things were bad. There was some turmoil at home, and his father and his uncle, who were both merchants themselves, had already been to China. There was a bunch of people. They already had the name the Silk Road going on. So there was trade happening all the time anywhere. So he kind of finally was of age. He was like 17 whenever they asked it. They told him like, hey, things are getting bad here. Like, I don't know. We don't want you falling in with the gangs. Bloods and the Crips. So you got to come with us and come to China, right? So while they do say they probably did reach parts of China, but the book that he wrote, The Travels of Marco Polo, was dictated years later when Marco was an older guy. He was sitting in prison after being still caught up in the war between Venice and Genoa.
Right. He was actually, it was a year after he had come back to his homeland and was in prison and had it says, good fortune of meeting a writer and editor who saw the potential of his, what they called, wild recount of the world that was largely unknown to Europeans.
Yeah. I mean, and this guy, they
editor, heard this guy and they're like, he's telling some tall tales and we can sell it.
And the editor and writer was also like a romance author.
Right.
So he likely embellished and went over the top and added chivalrous things.
Well, it does say there's a lot of romantic things in the book, not romance, but other romantic acts in the book that people do claim have got to be highly embellished.
Yeah. And I think that is what is at the center of everything about the book and about the guy is that the embellishment. Like some things probably did happen. Like he was maybe a lower level person in the court of the great Khan at the time, but he wasn't as important.
He wasn't the ambassador as he claimed to be.
He wasn't as important as he led on. And it's look, this is the tales all the time. Everyone has been embellishing on their resume forever.
This was the original. You're not mowing grasses, you're a landscape artist.
Yes, I'm a landscape architect. All right. I didn't just man the weed eater. Not to offend people.
The thing I love the most is that he claimed to see a unicorn.
Okay.
Which they have in more recent times discovered based on his description that it was not a unicorn at all. It was a rhinoceros. But for a long time, he claimed and people thought that he saw a unicorn.
Can you imagine never seeing a rhinoceros and then seeing a rhinoceros? I mean, I know you don't remember being 5 and the first time you saw a rhinoceros, but imagine being like 20, okay? Like he made the journey or whatever, he's 17, 18, 19, somewhere around there, and seeing a rhino for the first time, which, yes, let me answer the question right now. Rhinos did exist in China at the time. They're extinct now, but they did exist and go extinct around that time. So you see a rhino for the first time. Wouldn't that just blow your mind? I think it would blow my mind. It would blow my mind right now if a rhino was just walking in the yard.
But who called it a unicorn?
I don't know.
Did he call it a unicorn? Did somebody else be like, we don't know what this is, but we're going to make up a name for it?
So like he talks about all these different things, cities like Xanadu and the court and all these wonders of the East, right? But he never mentions like the Great Wall of China, which if you saw the Great Wall of China for the first time, you would be like, holy moly.
And I don't know my history like you do, but was the Great Wall finished at this time?
Oh yeah, I mean they were putting some plaster on it and stuff, like getting
but
the
he would have,
off
if
of it.
It was there, he would have seen it.
Yeah, he would have definitely seen it. So what they're saying is that he most likely talked to other travelers, stitched together some truths, and then told it to this guy in prison, and the guy then took it from there, and now all of a sudden you have an influencer who we don't remember his father and his uncle's names, although they're out there. I mean, they're in my notes. But we know Marco Polo because his name is easy to say. And his fun summertime goodness. There you go. Unscaled Travel Show. We'll be right back.
Unscaled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. Jeremy Long here with my co-explorer, Amy.
Hi.
We're at Diamondback Land Surveying Studios in beautiful Sin City, Las Vegas. And we're talking all about explorers. The explorers that we often learn about in school. And most of the time, it is the glossy version, the kind of whitewashed, if you will, versions of travelers and explorers. And
it's the Instagram version of what happened.
Everything is perfect all the time. My life is great. I 100% meant to do everything that I'm doing right now, and never the bad stuff. And we're here to kind of shine a light and say, look,
we're here to talk about the bad stuff.
Not necessarily to poo-poo these people, but to also say, like, it's not all it's cracked. Like your parents' Facebook post. Or that one couple that's always posted about how perfect their lives are all the time. It's like, it's not always. They say that truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
But oftentimes fiction is way more exciting than the truth, right? And that's where we come in. I mean, we were just talking about Marco Polo, and now one that we get here, especially in the United States. Okay. And so our listeners in England and around the world, it might be a little less familiar with these guys than we are, but Lewis and Clark.
Yes, yeah.
In school, right? We learned that Lewis and Clark were brave explorers that went off and mapped the Louisiana Purchase. That's where we got most of our land in this giant purchase with France. At the time. And so they went out mapping bravely the American West and forging a new path to the Pacific Ocean. And every time they're presented in paintings and on postage stamps and everywhere else, they're, standing over the mountain and they're looking brave and everything else. The truth, yes, it is. Some of that is true. But oftentimes their expedition had faced constant danger. And
Absolutely.
They get a lot of the credit that other people probably rightly deserve, because it wasn't just these two guys like out there, me and my buddy, and we're high-fiving over gullies and gorges.
They had a whole crew.
Yeah.
They, just if you read about it, they had 27 people in their group when they first left, and they actually accumulated a few more along the way.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just these two guys and their, paper and pencil mapping out the United States.
Their map colors, their crayons.
Right.
No permanent markers, just them. But they actually did call it the Corps of Discovery. That is a great name for a group. You call it about the Fellowship of the Ring, the Corps of Discovery.
I do like it.
Yeah, okay. You could write a thing. But, okay, so the expedition lasted 2 years, 1804 to 1806, but they constantly battled starvation, freezing temperatures, hostile terrain. I mean, the indigenous folks were none too happy that they were stomping all over their marigolds and things like that out in the fields, and they were under attack almost constantly. It's amazing, though, with all of that, only actually one person died on the entire expedition.
They think he died of appendicitis.
Yeah.
It wasn't even anything related
even that.
To that. And actually, correction, their party had 45 people in it, 27 unmarried soldiers, it says, plus Lewis and Clark, interpreters, a boat crew, and other enslaved people that these parties owned came with them. And again, along the way, more and more people. So this group grew to over 50 people.
They leave a lot of that out in school.
They do.
Some popular but misguided facts. They discovered the American West. No, they didn't. Okay. The fiction is Lewis and Clark bravely charted virgin territory that no white man had ever seen before. It was amazing. They saw rhinos. I don't know. That was a Marco Polo thing.
Bison. They saw bison.
The fact is that indigenous nations had been there for thousands of years, and most of those nations had already mapped every trail, every mountain pass, river bend, long before Thomas Jefferson, who had his own issues back then, let me tell you, sent these guys west, right? The other thing is that it's Lewis and Clark, right? They get all the credit because they were bros, right? One of the main characters that is just now getting her due for the role that she played in all of this is Sacagawea. And Sacagawea is, like I said, just now in the last few decades, finally getting prominent. And it's actually in the last couple of decades, she had just given birth In fact, Lewis and Clark were there. They documented her giving birth to a son.
And she was a child.
She was basically she was a child bride.
She had actually been kidnapped by other Native Americans and sold to a Frenchman to be his wife.
Yeah.
And when they met her, she was, I think, 16 and pregnant, and they had to wait for her to give birth to go on this trip.
Yeah. And so it's only in the last
Can you imagine? They kick you out of the hospital 2 days after you have a baby now. These guys show up and they're like, okay, have your baby, and then we're going to trek across the rest of the country, and you're going to carry that baby.
She can get no time, bro.
In a cloth on your back. This poor girl.
What did Jeff Foxworthy used to say? Like, it takes longer to make chili in a crock pot than you can come out there. Okay, I was going to say a couple times, it's only in the last couple of decades they've even started putting her in pictures and on coins and things like that with her baby. Because oftentimes she was put out there like, oh, it's just her and she's this young faithful guy doing the thing. No. She was a mother. She was a young teenage mother who kept these idiots from dying.
I doubt she actually had much say in the matter.
No, she did not.
I think her husband was like, here you go. She will communicate to...
He's the one that actually made the deal, and he was supposed to do... So, I mean, the French guy also should get more, attention, but he was kind of, not a good guy by today's standards. So oftentimes Lewis and Clark presented as these bros who had this triumphant bromance, as you might say. They were constantly at each other. Okay. And that has to do with Meriwether Lewis was what we think mentally unstable. After the expedition, he was given a cushy job as the governor of the Louisiana Territory, but he kind of descended very rapidly into depression, alcoholism, and died by 1809. So just a couple years after this was all over, he was gone, bro. A lot of other things. They peacefully coexisted with the native tribes that they met. No, this is also false. And if it wasn't for Sacagawea, and even they ran into some fur trappers. And that's another thing, like fur trappers and everything were already out west. So they weren't the first people out west anyway. So like, if it wasn't for her doing her thing, like we would probably be asking, whatever happened to Lewis and Clark? It'd be one of those great American mysteries. Like, whatever happened to these guys? Because they were never seen again. It is really fun to dig into the history.
It is. I know you love it. I know you want to keep going. And I have to be honest, the more I dig into it, it is very interesting. The little things that you didn't know, or even to really think about it, like to map land, you're not just hiking through the land. You have to like stop and really see, where does the water go? Where are the mountains? Things like that. So this wasn't a quick trip, even 2 years. I mean, it took time to really map that part of the country. Yeah.
So while we got the story of Lewis and Clark boldly going where no one had gone before, it was more about them barely staying alive long enough to draw the stinking map. Keep it right here. Side Scale Travel Show. Hope you're having fun. I'm having a blast. We'll be right back.
Unskilled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unskilled Travel Show. Jeremy Long here with my co-explorer, Amy.
Hello.
Remember, for all of our past episodes and interviews, check us out, unskilledtravelshow.com. We're in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios, and we're talking about famous explorers throughout history, some of the first travel influencers, if you will, real people that did exist, but I think their legend has grown exponentially, which I think oftentimes contradicts the truth.
You think they were overhyped?
Not overhyped. I mean, in that time, some of them were actually famous, but I think embellishment is probably the word of this episode.
Or glossing over some of the unpleasantries.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the other stuff that, again, good marketing and PR, you go, ooh, let's leave out the enslaved people part, you know.
It's not funny. It's not funny. It's just
it's not, but it's a reoccurring theme with a lot of
exactly.
These, right?
Yes.
The next one. This one is rather, man, I don't know how to put this in. Like, there have been so many movies. In fact, Best Picture on this one, Lawrence of Arabia. T.E. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, is often portrayed as the British officer who led Arab forces against the Ottoman Empire right around the time of World War I. He became a symbol of cultural understanding and sometimes battlefield brilliance, which is crazy, right? And so, like, you have this old movie with Peter O'Toole. It was like 4 hours long. I'm sure your parents or grandparents loved this movie because I remember sitting through it and just thinking.
You sat through it? For real? I
sat through it.
I have never watched it.
Yeah. And like Peter O'Toole has like eyeliner on the entire thing. And he's like, just half the movie is him just staring at the sand dunes and stuff like that.
I'm going to be real honest.
Okay.
I knew it was a movie. I had no idea it was a real person.
Yeah, it's a real person.
This isn't the kind of history they teach you in Texas. Texas is all about Texas history and American history. Outside of that, there's not a lot of world history.
Number one, Texas has a lot of issues when it comes to public education. We're not going to get into all that. We don't have time to get into all of that, but we're going to get into this, right? So Lawrence of Arabia was this character larger than life, but it was a real guy. He was a British officer, and he did fight in these kind of like these regional battles against imperialism and things like that, right? So the reality is often closer to he did fight alongside these Arab tribes, but he was also a real good master at controlling his own image. There have been, I think you were looking at it when we were researching this, 70-something books, all kinds of biographies written about T.E. Lawrence. And while he was alive, he was very good at presenting what he thought people wanted to see.
So you think he played both sides? I'm asking. I really don't know.
Question.
I don't know.
I think he kind of did.
Because from what I read, people on both sides still think he's this great person. And that's hard to have two people on two different sides of a war both find this one person to still be legendary.
It is harder, as you see with some of these travelers we're talking about, explorers that we're talking about. It is hard sometimes to separate the truth and the fiction, and oftentimes the good with the bad, because they oftentimes go hand in hand. And what we think of now, looking back on it with a lens coming from 2025, is not always the case of like, this is acceptable. And like,
the line has moved.
The line has certainly moved, right? So he's often presented, especially like in the movies and stuff, as this dashing white savior who united the Arab world. When the fact is, the revolt was already underway when Lawrence showed up. And he was more of kind of like a liaison. And he did work in kind of propaganda moves. He was doing that more than he was like a general. And it kind of downplays that the real fighters were the Arabs and the tribes that were going through all this upheaval and everything. Lawrence was very smart, yes, but he didn't necessarily unify anything. He was a character just kind of caught between the imperial betrayal from the colonization from the UK. From Britain, from the British monarch, and what the Arabs hope had happened, you know. And so, like, you know, often things like like he was a natural born military genius. Like, no, he didn't have any military training, and he made a lot more mistakes. You know, I think I would put him in kind of line with Washington, George Washington. I mean, obviously you're thinking political. I was going to say, and people might hate me for this, I was going to say everybody thinks of Babe Ruth as this amazing baseball player who hit home runs, right? But isn't there something like he struck out obviously more than he hit home runs? Like you don't hear a whole lot about that. Yeah. He has a book, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, which has been greatly romanticized and polished about his experiences to create a larger than life kind of persona that we still talk about today, right? another reality, he wrestled with severe PTSD, guilt, and survivor's trauma. He knew going in, because he was a British agent at heart. No matter what he did, he was a British officer trying to do what was right for the British military. He knew the British Empire wasn't going to honor its promises to the Arab allies. And after the war, it kind of haunted him, because I think he did at some point kind of play both sides of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that takes a toll after a while, because he might have been a stand-up guy and he was very smart and he was respected. But I think his legend over time has grown.
And saying that, I found this kind of interesting thing that the Bristol University in England has been doing a lot of digs and things like that in the area to really kind of uncover what actually happened. And recently they have discovered a forgotten British Army camp that has been untouched for over a century. Mm-hmm. And they named it Lawrence's Lost Camp. And one of the guys there, he was a researcher, said, yes, Lawrence was probably here for a day or two, but this was not his camp. Like, he just stopped in one day. But I think this is where the legend has grown to the point that it just kind of encompasses everything.
Yeah. And it's hard to separate during that time period what he actually did and the things in his heart and how he felt about it, and propaganda, basically, at that time. Unscaled Travel Show. Keep it right here.
Unscaled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. If you have stuck with us, thanks. I'm Jeremy Long here with my co-host, co-explorer, Amy.
Hello.
Or Amy the Red. That's her explorer name. We're coming to you from the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. We're exploring the legends around some of the first, I guess, big travel influencers, explorers, because it's always been in our human nature, I think, to explore. It's just, I mean, you've yelled it constantly while hunting donkeys down on the side of roads.
You yell at me that I'm an explorer. That it's not safe.
That's a whole different topic. And that a lot of these, a lot of the truth around some of these explorers is there for a reason. But then there have just been, I think, over years, it's been romanticized about the fearless, brave warrior explorer who goes off and discovers and conquers.
That's a good way of putting it.
Or whatever. Yeah. We romanticize these things when the truth is oftentimes not as exciting and or a little bit more dicey than we would prefer. Especially I always go back to school because this is where a lot of us first learn about some of these people we're talking about, right? So the one I want to talk about now is Leif Erikson.
Can I be really honest again?
Sure.
I did not know Leif Erikson was someone from history in this aspect. I thought it was the name of a singer from like the 70s. Like somebody in the Bee Gees or something. So when you said we're going to talk about Leif Erikson, I was a little confused. I was like, what does he have to do with travel?
You know what? I can't even hate you for that one because, I mean...
It's a great name, though.
That is a great name. That is a perfect name.
But, I mean, think of the Bee Gees. Wouldn't Leif Erikson fit one?
Move aside, Barry Gibb. Leif Erikson. And, in fact, there is a Leif Erikson Day. October 9th is Leif Erikson Day. If I need to go further, if you grew up on SpongeBob, then you know the very famous Leif Erikson Day episode where he wakes up and he's wearing a big red beard and a Viking hat, right? So Leif Erikson, the explorer, not the rock star from the 70s, is now celebrated as the first European to reach North America about 500 years before some guy named Columbus. Okay, Columbus, Euro trash, right? We're not even going to talk about him. He's not even welcome in this talk. But Leif Erikson is around, okay, so around the year 1000, all right, Erikson sailed from Greenland to what he called Vinland, which is more likely to have been Newfoundland in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like North America, yes, but not like he didn't roll up in New York and be like, hey, you know, let me go get a bagel and like do my thing here. So the other realities, they kind of just leave off until you dig into it. It's more and more truth is like coming to the surface. Okay. Number one, the accounts of his life were written about 200 to 250 years after all of these things happened.
Okay.
So back then there wasn't Facebook to remind you every year, like, hey, you remember what happened last year? It's kind of just told down through stories and a few written accounts. So some things may have gotten lost. Other things may have been added for the legend to grow. He didn't stick around long. They did have what they call like a temporary colony set up in Newfoundland. Okay. And I say temporary, less than 10 years. So it's not like they set up a big post and they were like trying to make it work there and they were going to do it for all of time. You know, they instantly, like a lot of these people, had clashes with the people who already lived there, the indigenous populations. They had very not nice words for these people. Okay, I'm not going to repeat them here, but they did clash violently with the Norse, and where eventually was at least partly the reason that they left because
inhospitable.
Leif Erikson's brother, Garrett, I don't know, I have no idea what his name, eventually went there and was actually killed by the indigenous people. So look at you laughing too soon.
I'm sorry.
But Leif's achievement was largely forgotten until the late 19th and early 20th centuries when Scandinavian Americans pushed to get him recognized over that Columbus guy because Columbus was a jerk.
Well, so reading this article from historychannel.com talking about Leif Erikson,
sure.
I'm a little confused because it says historical accounts differ on the actual sequence of events, but according to the Erikson saga, he was returning from a trip and took a wrong turn and ended up in North America.
He might have.
So, A, where was he going on his trip that he was returning from it and ended up in North America?
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused there. But then also it says, according to other Icelandic saga, the saga of Greenlanders, it says that he actually heard about Vinland from an Icelandic trader. I'm not even going to try to say this name.
Yeah.
And he basically kind of stole the story.
See, there's still a lot of things that they're, going on about, discovering about. Because there were expeditions and he wasn't necessarily the first one. In fact, they say another guy whose name I absolutely can't pronounce may have already gone by the same area, looked at it and decided, I'm not going to stop there. Yeah. But Leif got, he got some love because he stopped by and was like, hey, I like these trees or whatever he did.
So, I mean, this is very different accounts. One is he was going somewhere else and on his way home, took a wrong turn. Another is he heard about this place from someone else and was like, yeah, I'll go check it out for you.
Yeah.
It's and maybe it is because it wasn't written down. Nobody was like, let me post about this on my Facebook so we can.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing that, the popular theory is that his discoveries like changed history when in fact his trip opened the door. Actually, when they abandoned their little community there, Europe kind of forgot about the whole thing. Like the word never really got back and people didn't really care. And then 500 years later, they were like, let me go get some boats. Nina Pinta Santa Maria thing.
I did this thing once, long time ago.
And they forgot about it, like I do oftentimes. The truth, man.
Poor Leif Erikson. He should have stuck to music. Unskilled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. It is not Leif Erikson Day. I'm Jeremy Long, your host, here with my co-host and co-explorer, Amy.
Hello.
We're coming to you from the beautiful Sin City, Las Vegas, in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios. We're talking about the myths and mythologies and legends around some of the first travelers and explorers that I guess I would label them more travel influencers.
You know what these travel influencers needed? A land surveying company.
Like Diamondback Land Surveying. That's absolutely right. Check them out. DiamondbackLandSurveying.com. That's a great plug.
Shout out to our sponsors.
Yeah. Trent and Lisa Keenan should have been on board. If they would have been on board, maybe, our next guy would not have been unalive the way he was. And this one, I think, is going to split a lot of people because we're going to talk about Captain James Cook, not Captain Hook from Peter Pan. Okay. He was not in a battle for some reason with a little 12-year-old forever boy, but Captain Cook is often credited with mapping huge parts of the Pacific, which is true. Discovering Australia for Britain, which is dubious, and expanding European scientific knowledge, which is kind of one of those truths that's mixed in with things, right? He is often celebrated. I know we were doing some research and you were reading about how he is celebrated as being like one of the most peaceful kind of explorers and wayfarers and people like that to circumvent the globe.
Yeah.
And the truth, as we are seeing with a lot of these, is often murkier than that.
Yeah, I mean, several things say that he single-handedly changed the map of the world more than any other person. And maybe that's true. And maybe he mapped things no one else had mapped up to that point. Or maybe he was just able to make a collection of other people's maps. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just reading what this says. But when you really start looking into it, it looks like he spent most of his life at sea, like doing this. And the more he went about doing it, kind of his mood changed. So there's a newer biography about him, and it does say that on his third and final voyage, people noticed like he was not himself. He was moody, he was violent, he was cruel to the native people that they were encountering, and that he was just kind of volatile. And this led to his death, which, if you do not know, it's a little bit crazy what happened. So basically, him and his men were in Hawaii, and a rowboat of theirs was taken by locals, they claim. In their attempt to get it back, they decided to kidnap the king of Hawaii.
That is not a matching.
That did not go over well with the locals. It turned into a brawl, and Cook was killed on the beach on Valentine's Day, 1779.
That is not a.
But like, if the story was told, man attempts to kidnap king and is murdered, totally different story than this guy mapped most of the world.
Yeah. That is wild. I knew I knew he died in Hawaii. I didn't know there was all of that. That's a little convoluted and a lot crazy.
Who attempts to kidnap a king because their rowboat was taken?
Which is kind of nuts when you look at like Captain Cook. He is often portrayed as this polished, stoic face of like Enlightenment era exploration around that time. He was famous in his own time. He was one of those guys, right? So, but the discovery of half the Pacific and the discovery of Australia is dubious because Discovery means that no one was there already. So, going to islands where he was initially welcomed in a lot of places. His first trip to Hawaii, he kind of left there. People were like, hey, we like this honky. He's good. He's good people. You come back anytime, bro. You come back to the cookout, right? Second time, obviously, did not go so well. So, and then the part about Australia, like Dutch explorers had already mapped the western side of Australia. He went to the east side, which is true, and he mapped part of that. And then he kind of went on land where Aborigines people had been for like 65,000 years and planted a flag and was like, I discovered this. So it's dubious at best. And I think discovery is one of those words that we're seeing a lot in exploration where it's kind of going, you're starting to see that pattern of like, we're discovering something that's already been discovered.
I think the word they're looking for is claimed.
Claimed.
They claimed this land.
Yeah. And so can you be the face of that stoic, like I'm doing this just for the good of science while also planting flags around the Pacific saying I'm also doing this for the British Empire?
Right. And a lot of people say, yes, he did do all this, but along with that, he brought Western diseases to these native populations, and it in turn decimated the natives who had been living there for hundreds of thousands of years. So was it a good thing?
That is, no. I'm going to go ahead and say no. I'm going to say that's not. But like you said, I mean, the increasing spending all your time in the Pacific, he probably had some kind of disease they didn't know about, honestly, looking at it. I mean, over time, with Cook becoming
he went mad.
More and more aggressive toward the indigenous peoples that he came across, especially for things like wanting them resisting European domination control. It kind of looks like he might have contracted something, maybe. I would say, but even that would be a polish on it. Like we don't know. So until we do know, like he just did these things.
I mean, there's other very sad things in his life. He was married to his wife for 34 years. Over half of those years, he was away at sea. They managed to have 6 children, but three of them died in infancy, and the 3 surviving sons, 2 of them entered the Navy and died also in the Navy. So of his 6 children, only 1 survived into adulthood, really. I mean, it could have been a sickness. Maybe he was depressed. Maybe life in general, it just wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
So, when you look at it, Captain Cook, right, his legacy overall is oftentimes universally celebrated in certain cultures. In many Pacific Island nations, though, Cook is not seen as a hero. He's remembered as the beginning of colonial loss, basically. Land, sovereignty, languages, people's lives. Statues of Cook in Australia and New Zealand are regularly defaced or protested.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Especially by indigenous activists. He's a symbol of these kind of like first contact phases where it was like, hey, we're coming in peace, but also we're claiming all your land and we're going to, we're going to eventually move in for,
Yeah. And here it says on the Big Island of Hawaii, his name is still on post offices, roads, apartment buildings. However, many people, Pacific Islanders, call Cook's arrival to Hawaii the fatal impact and the loss of beginning of the loss of their culture. So, I mean, I think it depends on whose side you're viewing it from.
Yeah, and if you look at it just from a lens, just from that corporate 40,000-foot lens above it, you're like, I think that a lot of these words kind of mean, they say one thing and mean another. Yeah, which is often, oh man. Okay, all right. So we'll move on from Captain Cook. Send all your hate mail to Amy at Unskilled Travel Show. Keep it right here.
Unskilled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. Jeremy Long here with my co-host and co-explorer, Amy.
Hello.
For all of our past episodes and interviews, check us out at unscaledtravelshow.com. We're in sunny Sin City, Las Vegas, in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios. And if we haven't lost you as a listener yet, I am so thankful. You know, it's not easy to shine a light of truth on people's heroes and their icons.
Yeah.
And I get it. You know, they often say, like, never meet your heroes because you don't want to find out who they really are because you've built them and put them on this pedestal. So there's all kinds of things about that. But like sometimes, like in this case, this is a person that even in her time stood for something. Mm-hmm. And still stands for something.
Yeah.
And it means something to different people, different things to different people, right? That whole thing. But the next one I wanted to talk about in all of this is Amelia Earhart.
Yes. And I admire Amelia Earhart. I admire that at a time when women didn't have a lot of opportunities.
Sure.
She did something most women never thought they could do.
Yeah.
I don't know why, for some reason, I thought she was the first woman to actually fly a plane, but that's not true. She actually learned to fly from a female flight instructor. So there were other female pilots at the time. She was just the first to fly across the Atlantic by herself, which is still an amazing feat. But the more I dug into the story, I realized my understanding was that glossy.
Sure.
The glossy story that we all know. And you just kind of make some assumptions based on that.
Yeah. I mean, and it makes sense when you kind of look at it, right? I mean, she was, even in her time, okay, real life, you're talking about a couple years after Charles Lindbergh became a national hero and then kind of, I don't know, fell because of some Nazi things. But like Earhart, she was considered the queen of the skies. She was not only that, she was like what you were talking about, like a feminist icon. And then she ended up becoming, because of how her life went, she ended up becoming the subject of more conspiracy theories than I think a UFO convention. You know,
very true.
All kinds of stuff. And there are a lot of things in her life that she did. The first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, all of those things that can be celebrated and should be celebrated. But it's oftentimes, you know, what those few sentences that people get in history books when teachers just kind of gloss over things for people. And so you just think, okay, so she was this big, you know, thing and she was the best pilot in the world because who else would attempt this crazy thing like that? And then when you kind of dig into it, you're like, it's not all it's kind of cracked up to be.
Well, she was actually the first woman to cross the Atlantic by plane at all.
Really?
But she wasn't flying it. She was a passenger. And that's the part that kind of got lost in translation because when the flight landed, she immediately became a media sensation and they sort of left off the part that she was a passenger.
Yeah.
And because of this, she basically became a media sensation and a symbol of what women can do. Women, you know, feminism and, you know, women can be anything they want to be. And because of this, she had she was involved in 2 books. It doesn't say she actually wrote them, but she was involved in 2 books being published. She actually had a short stint working in the fashion industry and was an editor for Cosmopolitan magazine. All because, like, she got sponsorships, kind of, and all these opportunities.
Influencer.
Yeah.
She got endorsements.
Exactly.
That's savvy. You know, I don't hate the player, hate the game kind of stuff, right? And that's right. I mean, because the one she's often associated with most, or the first one, is her flight in 1928, the one you were talking about, right? Where she was the passenger. She even said in an interview, I was just baggage. I was like a sack of potatoes. Like these other two guys did it, but when she got off the plane, people were like,
a woman.
But it fits for that time because if you go back and look at all the things that people thought women couldn't do just because being a woman.
Yeah. I mean still, but
that's
a different show. We're not going to get into that.
So then I feel like that trip right there kind of pushed her to a place that maybe she didn't even want to go at that time because 4 years later, she did the actual journey, the solo trip across the Atlantic, which she is famed for and should be celebrated for and things like that. But I think it might have been people going, hey, you know what really set it off? If you did this by yourself.
Right.
And then later, the fateful one. What if you did the solo journey around the world?
Yeah.
I mean, because people want bigger and bigger and more and more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the time, she won all these different awards. She helped found the 99s, was just an organization of female aviators. Purdue University hired her to be an aviation advisor and a career counselor for women. Like she was doing all these things. Her popularity was growing. So I think too, it's kind of like when your agent, I'm assuming an agent, is telling their celebrity that they manage, like, hey, you know, we got to do something. We got to keep you in the news. We got to keep you relevant.
Yeah.
So yeah, then she ends up taking on this quest, I guess.
Yeah.
And it ended up not going well for her. But a lot of people don't want to talk poorly about her. But when you dig into it, a lot of people question if she was actually that good of a pilot. And maybe she caused the wreck because she didn't really know what she was doing.
Well, you would think if they're going into this this journey where her last one was about circumventing the globe. There's a lot of that in these stories we told today in 1937, right? And you would figure that it is meticulously planned out, that down to the last detail, because if you're going from New Guinea to what is called Howland Island at the time, like that is a speck in the middle of the giant Pacific Ocean. That has to be perfect triangulation to refuel, or else, you know, you kind of end up, the way she did end up. But actually, when they started, you know, years later, when all this stuff starts coming out, the circumventing the globe was rushed. It was poorly planned. It was riddled with errors. She changed navigators at the last second, poor radio communication, you know, from her plane and stuff like that. It was almost like, oh, this is a PR stunt,
right,
or a marketing thing that went bad. And it went bad in the worst kind of way.
Well, some people said she didn't really know Morse code, so even her radio transmissions were not correct that she sent. And she was known for flying on instinct rather than actually having advanced knowledge of the navigation tools on the plane. So it's very likely she didn't understand she was in trouble because she didn't really know what all the tools meant, which is a little concerning that she was teaching aviation technique at a university right before this happened.
And you know, we talk about, I don't want to gloss this over, with her publicist and marketing person and everything. That was her husband, George Putnam. George Putnam was, I mean, he marketed her relentlessly. Now, you know what they say about there's Instagram husbands and boyfriends now, and they're holding the cameras and doing all that. Well, imagine that's George Putnam. But he's also taking it and putting it online, and he's contacting the magazines, and he's like, hey, and I don't know how they talk back then. Hey there, you know, why don't you get my girl on the magazine, on the color pictures and things like that. And he's doing all of that. Sorry, my own voice made me laugh. That she even gave him a letter before they were married saying, I shall not hold you to any medieval code of faithfulness to me, nor shall I consider myself bound to you in any kind of way, because it was a good partnership for both of them.
Was
so
not a love
other
match.
things.
Okay.
And like he marketed the heck out of her. And in the end, it might have been her downfall.
Yeah. I mean, I still admire her. I still think she did amazing things. And she is a great symbol of what women can achieve.
Yeah.
It just might be one of those things where maybe she was pushed ahead without having all the proper knowledge and everything needed to actually make this trip around the world happen successfully. You know, sometimes sometimes you get a little too big, a little too fast, and then things crack.
Sure.
And maybe that's what happened here.
The final big thing about her is that a lot of people say maybe she disappeared without a trace. That was for years. I mean, there's been countless shows and movies and everything done about it. She, in fact, was flying with her navigator, Fred Noonan. And, conspiracy theories. She faked her death and she lived under an alias the rest of her life, or it was aliens, and all this other stuff. When the last few decades, more and more evidence has come out. They think they found the plane. They found skeletal remains, all kinds of stuff. It's interesting. Dig into it, folks. It's an Unscaled Travel Show. Thanks for joining us. We will see you guys next time.